So Elizabeth Prelogar makes it look easy. When she stands at the lectern at oral argument, answering the hardest questions without hesitation, always with a smile on her face, you would think there was nothing to it. But her eloquence and even her serenity before the Supreme Court comes only after the most intense preparation. I saw it when she prepared to discuss cases with me as a law clerk, and I saw it in the way she prepared for Supreme Court arguments as the Solicitor General. She mastered every legal detail of the most complicated issues by constantly testing them against her DOJ colleagues. And she mastered every factual detail by insisting on hands-on learning. Now, that's not some metaphor. Elizabeth actually personally assembled a ghost gun so she could answer questions in the Vanderstock case about exactly how long it took to put a ghost gun together. But the ultimate source of Elizabeth's eloquence and serenity comes not from preparation, but from her empathy for the real-world consequence that underlie dry legal argument. That empathy was well reflected in Elizabeth's argument for a woman's right to receive emergency medical care in Moyle versus United States, and in her successful defense of a law that protects victims and survivors of domestic violence in United States versus Rahimi, and in her first Supreme Court argument in private practice just last week, when she reminded the court in a pretty dry jurisdictional doctrinal case that this was really a case about whether a woman who was involuntarily committed to a mental hospital could get redress for violation of her constitutional rights. Now, I don't want my emphasis on preparation to suggest that Elizabeth is not a natural, because she is. My favorite story from her clerkship year comes from one of her co-clerks. It was the first time Elizabeth and her co-clerk had visited a second grade classroom as part of a tutoring program in which I participated. The teacher was supposed to select 2 students in the class, and my 2 clerks were to work with them on a reading assignment. Instead, the teacher abruptly left the room, wishing Elizabeth and her co-clerk good luck, and saying she would be back in 45 minutes. The clerk who recounted this tale was nonplussed. Elizabeth, not nonplussed. She strode confidently to the center of the room. She began leading the students in a word game of her own invention, maintaining their rapt attention until the teacher returned. Pretty good preparation for dealing with the justices of the Supreme Court. As Solicitor General, Elizabeth represented and protected the people of the United States. I hope and I expect that someday she will once again have that opportunity. In the meantime, as I am sure you know, she is employing her eloquence, her mastery of detail, and her empathy to defend the legal profession and ultimately the rule of law. The rule of law is lucky to have Elizabeth Prelogar on her side. And now Brandon, Beckett, and Blaze get ready to watch other people saying even more nice things about your wife and mom.
Elizabeth is a firecracker of a lawyer.
There are literally fangirls and fanboys all over the city of Washington, D.C., and dare I say across the nation, of Elizabeth Prelogar. I mean, you run into whoever when I'm at a legal bar association meeting and people find out that I worked at the Justice Department, they'll say, "Do you know Elizabeth Prelogar?"
Watching Elizabeth argue is like watching Michael Jordan play basketball. It is watching a master on the court or in the court, and it's just a joy and a privilege.
I've got a lot on the line there, really, having told everybody she's like one of our greatest advocates. But she never disappoints. This is the thing about Elizabeth. She just never disappoints.
One thing that particularly stands out is her ability to tell me when I was wrong. In almost all cases, she was right and I was wrong.
She took on some of the toughest battles at the Supreme Court and did so in just such a fearless way.
With respect to responsibility in particular, our understanding of what history and tradition reflect and how this court has used the term is that it's identifying those whose possession of firearms presents an unusual danger beyond the ordinary citizen.
Everyone understood what was riding on Rahimi.
I think in very real terms, the Rahimi case meant for people on the street that in circumstances where they had a domestic violence protective order entered to try to prevent their intimate partner from being able to engage in further acts of violence, that there was an enforcement mechanism to keep guns out of that person's hand.
I believe she said at argument something along the lines of, and I'm going to paraphrase, the difference between a battered woman and a dead woman is a gun.
It's about really understanding what's really deeply at stake in the case, and there, for example, ensuring that domestic violence survivors are able to be shielded from potential threats from their abusers, obviously is a massively important issue and one that she was able to give voice to in a way that really brought a coalition of the court together.
We're following the very high-stakes U.S. Supreme Court hearing right now on emergency abortion care. Let's listen in right now. The U.S. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar and Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson are going back and forth.
She wasn't just thinking about the legal landscape, but she was always centering the real harm that would happen to real people around the country after the Dobbs decision. It was very top of mind for her. Women were bleeding out literally in parking lots, unable to get medical care or being turned away from hospitals when they needed emergency care. This was always about the people that were going to be harmed by this decision.
I've always thought that the most important thing is to make the right arguments for the right reasons to the best of your ability to try to protect individuals in the United States and to secure their rights. And sometimes that's all you can do, and sometimes maybe it will lead to some unexpected victories.
I have 2 daughters and a young son, and when I see her on TV, that's my law partner. That's someone I know. That's someone I work with.
One thing that often people don't know about Elizabeth is that in addition to the moots before an argument that she does with other lawyers, she moots every single argument with her 2 children. She makes sure that she can persuade them, and if she can persuade them, then she feels pretty good going into court.
The first time that I tried out my introduction for my kids before an oral argument and asked them my score, my older son gave me a 10 out of 10. I was feeling pretty good about this. He thought my intro was very good. But then my younger one, who was quite little at the time, I think he was 8 or 9, he said, "Mom, I give you an 11 out of 10, but I didn't understand a word you just said." And so I said to him, "How did I get an 11 out of 10? And he said, "Because we're a family and we support each other." And I have thought about that in just about every other argument I've had since.
She is a generational talent, and I hope and expect for her sake and for the sake of the American people that she will find her way back to the government and be in a position to represent this country.
I think you'd get the same answer from everyone here where we would want to see Elizabeth in 15 years, and it's sitting on the other side of the bench from where she was arguing.
I would be thrilled and excited to see the day where she is in that black robe and serving on our nation's highest court.
Sorry, they don't show you the video in advance, so I'm a little overcome right now seeing my amazing friends and colleagues and judge. Thank you for that introduction. I'm feeling at a loss for words, which is kind of uncomfortable when you're supposed to speak for a living. So bear with me. I'm going to collect myself. I wrote some things down, luckily. Judge Garland, thank you for those words and for everything you've meant to me over my life as a lawyer. I've always believed that I hit the absolute jackpot getting to clerk for you at the beginning of my career. Watching your approach to cases, your judgment, your integrity, your unwavering commitment to justice set a standard that I've carried with me ever since. I'm deeply grateful for what you've taught me and for what you've given to our country. I think a lot about the lessons that I learned during all of my clerkships. I had the privilege of working for 3 amazing, extraordinary judges. After my time with Judge Garland, I had the chance to clerk for Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. As many of you know, she devoted a major part of her career to challenging sex-based discrimination, laying the foundation for modern equal protection law. And I got to hear about this from her directly late one night near the end of my clerkship when we were alone together in chambers finishing up a draft of an opinion. The justice was a night owl, so she was in no hurry to finish up, and she started telling me stories of the cases that she had tried, the famous ones. But she didn't talk about the cases the way I expected. She didn't talk about holdings or frameworks or doctrine or tiers of scrutiny. Instead, she talked about her clients. She remembered their names, their families, their struggles, their courage in challenging a system that wasn't fair. To her, these decisions were victories not just for equality generally, but for the real people she represented who faced injustice, turned to the courts for redress, and got it. All those decades later, she still saw the law in those cases through the lives of the people it had touched. That conversation stayed with me. It's a reminder that as lawyers, we don't just litigate principles, we represent people. Cases are not abstractions. They are stories. They are lives. And our responsibility as advocates is to make sure the law reflects the lived realities of the communities we represent. And that's the work that legal aid does day in and day out. I have been in awe tonight hearing about that work, about some of those cases and some of those people. When legal aid fights to keep a family in their home, or helps a survivor of domestic violence get a protective order, or helps a dad get his water turned back on, that's the law working the way it's supposed to work, making justice real for people in our community. It is so uplifting to be here tonight in a room full of people who are committed to that work, and importantly, committed to funding that work. Legal aid's cases matter enormously to the people whose lives are changed by it, but it also matters to all of us, to the kind of justice system we believe in and the kind of society we want to live in. I've been incredibly lucky in my career to have the chance to work on cases that at their core were about helping people. In a case like Rahimi, it was impossible not to feel the stakes. The legal question before the court involved the scope of the Second Amendment, but behind that question were real people, people who had experienced violence from intimate partners and were trying to protect themselves and their families. And in a case like that, I think the role of an advocate is not just to explain a legal rule, but to try to help the court see the real-world consequences of its decision. And that didn't feel abstract at all. It felt urgent. It felt like the advocacy mattered because lives were at stake. The meaning from that kind of work is what drew me to public service in the first place. And when I left government, it was a big part of what drew me back to my firm, Cooley. I'm honored to have a whole lot of people, extraordinary colleagues from Cooley here with me tonight, including a critical mass of our Supreme Court and Appellate group. And I'm very proud to work at a firm that has a deep commitment to pro bono service, to supporting organizations like Legal Aid, and to standing up for the rule of law. I'm almost done, but I have to say a quick word about my family too, because they're out in full force here with me tonight. My brother Eric came into town. He's shown up for just about every important moment in my life. My husband Brandon is here. He's always supported me and made me realize that I don't have to choose between the things I care about. And I have my sons, Blaze and Bex, here, who are my greatest joy and keep me grounded, and yes, do very much help me prep for oral argument. And my mom, Jeannie, is here. From the very beginning of my life, my mom modeled for me what commitment to your community looks like. She spent her career as a public school teacher working with at-risk youth. Her students needed someone to believe in them, and she showed up for them every day. She taught me to aim high, work hard, and care deeply about the impact you have on others. Everything I've been able to do, every opportunity I've had, is because of her. And yes, I'll say it, I know I'm biased, but I believe it's true. She's the very best mom in the universe. So I'm endlessly grateful for that. I am so honored to receive this award. Thank you truly, Legal Aid.